everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a really great day. So today I'm actually showing you a speed build of me trying to build a wedding venue in The Sims 4, and I actually tried to make it look like a wedding cake. Specifically, I was trying to make it look like a three-tiered kind of classic wedding cake. You can see I'm struggling a little bit with how I want that to look. I actually cut out the part where I actually started with rectangles and tried to build those up and using the square tiers for a cake. But I decided I didn't like the way it looked, so I just cut all of that out, and we ended up with this not quite circular shape, although I would love circles, but that's actually really hard to do in The Sims. I actually don't even know if it's possible. And I used one of the wedding arches on top as like the cake topper, as you can see here. Later on, I actually end up taking it down because I heard that it actually confuses The Sims if you have more than one wedding arch on a lot. But I also know that as of right now, I think the wedding pack is still kind of broken. So anyways, I ended up taking that out later as to not confuse your Sims any more than they already are with this pack. So I ended up actually adding some trim to this. I'm thinking of it like a border on a wedding cake. And I actually decided to go just classic white, and then I add decorations to it. And as you can see, I decided to make the door this like ornate, I believe came with Get Famous. But anyways, I decided to go with it, and I don't know why I went with pink. It actually sets the tone for the rest of the build. Spoiler, everything's going to be pink. I don't know why, it just ended up that way. And I think originally the topper was rainbow, and then, well, I just changed it to pink. But I'll be swapping that out anyways, like I said. But again, for more pink, I swapped the topper out several times because I tried to use the mannequins, you know, they have toppers with like people on it. But I wasn't sure how to actually change the way they looked, like put them in outfits. But also, B, I didn't really want to lock you into the kinds of Sims that you actually bring to this wedding lot. So I ended up taking out the mannequins too at the end. At one point, I believe I swapped them out for that peacock statue that we just got with a new kit, but I changed that shortly after. I was just trying to put something there instead of having the mannequins. And I actually decided I couldn't find quite like a white flooring like I wanted to mimic the paint that I put on the walls. On the outside of the cake. That sounds like a really weird statement, putting paint on a cake. Anyways, I ended up going with like grass because I end up putting actually some flowers on those tiers, and I don't know, we're just going with it. It's also outside, it's also a building, so it'll be fine. And I'm using these streamers that I think came with seasons to mimic again some ornate piping on the cake tiers. I messed with those actually for a little while, trying to decide, because each of the sides is a little bit different in size, as you can tell, based on the way I had to make the levels of the building. So, and that would be the floors of the building, not the levels. Anyways, terminology between cake and buildings. So as you can see, I'm kind of overlapping them a little bit and changing them around. But again, for the most part, I'm sticking with a lot of white. The pink comes in when I start adding flowers to the cake, and I add a bunch of those later, so you get to watch me put a ton of flowers and bushes on the cake. But that'll be coming up actually in a little bit. And I actually, what inspired me to do this was all of the new wedding cakes that came with the pack. I actually haven't had a chance to look at those individually. I have seen some people on YouTube go through them, but I actually would really like to make one of those cakes, as well as then I was like, I could build a cake. So of course, naturally it became a wedding venue. And then actually in here in a little bit, I believe it was like a dine out sign, the one with like the random Simlish characters that looks like a sign for a business, but I put that on the side of the cake too. You can imagine like having initials on a wedding cake. I know a lot of people put like a monogram with the two people getting married, like with their names and their last name, I guess, if they're combining to have one last name. So you'll see that in a little bit as well. And honestly, when I started this build, I really didn't know where I was going with it, but here we are. So I think I actually really like the way it came out. Oh, and I scooted it back on the lot a little bit. This actually is located in Newcrest. I forgot exactly which lot. It says it, I know, in the top left corner, but I can't really read it from here. But we're in Newcrest right now. Oh yeah, and so then I decided to use hydrangeas. I'm just kind of putting those around everywhere. And actually they ended up sticking into the building in a lot of places. So when I actually go to decorate the inside of this building, I had to scoot a lot of them around so we didn't have random pieces of bush like sticking in through the walls. And then I end up here too. I noticed that like the sides didn't quite make sense. See, I'm adjusting it a little bit here. There was more space on that second floor than on the first one. So I was kind of changing that around. Of course, changing that around messed up all of the streamers I had placed. So this took a little while to do. I think the outside and the landscaping that comes later actually took me the most time versus, say, the inside. And the plans really for the outside became, that's where the wedding ceremony space is. So you'll see that in a little bit. And then I decided I needed to add just like a little extra, kind of filling in some of that space. So I use these, I don't know what flowers they are, but this pink plant of some kind to fill in all of those gaps. And it ended up looking, I think, pretty good. Like I said, other than the idea of having grass on a cake, which is not necessarily natural, but a lot of wedding cakes have flowers. Actually, when I got married, I decided to do just like a classic flowers on it, because if you've ever looked at like wedding cakes online, you can get lost in all of the different ideas and things that people have. It's really insane. So anyways, I got overwhelmed and I just picked simple flowers to go with it. And actually for my wedding, I had used purple. So you would think I would have gone with purple here, but I don't know, the pink kind of spoke to me. And it looks like, oh my gosh, I actually did change the door. It's no longer pink. So I guess that set the tone for pink, and then I changed it at some point. I didn't even notice that. And it actually took me about 3 sessions to finish this build. And this is when I actually decided that I wanted to put the ceremony space outside. And so I figured out, like, if you went through the building and out the back is where the nice ceremony space will be. And I tried to keep this tree. I'm trying to remember if I actually end up keeping it, but it kind of hangs out for a while. And it may get moved around because I just really liked the way it looked. But we'll find out if it actually stayed. Like I said, it took me about 3 sessions to get through this. So some of this I don't actually remember what I ended up doing. And then I ended up putting this like hedge, I guess, around the building to help. I was looking at possibly doing a little, not a balcony, a porch. That's the word I'm looking for, a porch around the side to mimic a cake board. So like that, what you actually put a cake on to serve it. But then I opted not to. I cut that out as well because it was me just kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I ended up cutting that out. And I wanted a fountain out front. I thought it looked really like an awesome entrance, but I do swap that out later, I think, for the romantic garden fountain. I think this one actually may be the one that came with the pack. And then I ended up just I use this, I think, in the back of the build as well, just like this terrain paint that has little pink flowers on it. And you can see there I also put in that pergola, is that the word I'm looking for? Out back in case I wanted to use that. And of course I decided to shift the lot, so then I had to move all of the hedges I had placed. Like I said, this took me a little while to do. So I naturally took a break after I finished the exterior because it took a little while. But I was actually really happy with how it turned out once I stopped. And this fence is actually from the new wedding pack as well. And I went through several renditions of what I wanted to put out front, kind of in front of those windows on both sides of the stairs. But I think I ended up putting like these big planters that came with the pack. They're actually very beautiful, but huge. So I had to shrink them or enlarge them. I can't even remember anymore. Oh, and there's that monogram that I was talking about. If you could pretend that those are the initials of the two Sims getting married. That's kind of what I was going for there. And then, of course, a normal wedding cake doesn't have windows on it, but, you know, a building should. So I added some of those. And this is, oh yeah, the pergola and the wedding arch that I put out back. And like I said, I haven't played much with this new pack yet, actually, other than like using a lot of the items from it because they are very beautiful items. And it does come with a dance floor as well, although it's super bright. Given that it's like right outside, it reflects a lot of the light there. On there I'm swapping out for those pieces and of course changing them to pink. And so I like the idea of actually being able just to head out the back door of the venue and just right into the ceremony space. So I imagine when your Sims are walking down the aisle, they can just walk down from there. And later on, you'll see we actually upstairs added like a space for the 2 Sims to like get ready for their ceremony. So a lot of times people like, you'll have 2 separate spaces to get ready, hair, makeup, getting dressed, whatever it is that you're doing. And then you head out to the ceremony. So, and I wanted to put the piano on its own little, like, I was thinking gazebo possibly, but then I changed my mind and ended up just going with like a porch looking thing, which actually turned out, I think, really well, especially once I added the railing that matched the railing on the building on the stairs. And so we put the piano up there, and then I think I just decorated it with some lanterns. I'm trying to remember, we may end up actually with a tree in this back corner as well. It just looked so bare back there, and I wanted some height, especially since the building itself was so tall, which also made things interesting when I was decorating like the 3rd floor. If you've built like taller Sims builds, sometimes the camera just does things kind of whatever it wants to. So adding more of those floral arrangements there to give a little bit of color, and just adding a lot of decorations. I feel like I use these like everywhere, so just in a bunch of places. And I loved the idea of having lanterns, and I put a ton of seats out. Like, I don't think you can even invite this many Sims, but I liked the way it looked to have that many chairs at the ceremony space since there was that much room. So I kind of left it, and I guess it gives the Sims that are attending a lot of options. From what I've heard in the pack, your Sims will actually sit, but I think they have a hard time getting back up. So hopefully they'll fix that soon. Again, this is just what I've seen of people using the pack. I just haven't done much gameplay with it. And I am kind of all over the place, if you can't tell. Trying to finish the landscaping, I kind of jump back and forth between parts of the ceremony space and then back out to the front. I was thinking about lining it with a bunch of rocks, but clearly I decided not to. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, if I wanted to make that a main path or allow the Sims to like walk around the building. So later I do actually end up adding a fence and a gate that they can walk through. But I thought it'd be nice to have the dance floor along with the bar and some food out back near the ceremony space. Hopefully, if you decide to use this lot, it's not raining, because, well, that could be a problem. I wouldn't, especially if it's like thunderstorm. I can only imagine, of course, your Sim's getting like struck by lightning and dying while they're trying to get married. Once when I was playing, I had a Sim die of hysteria. I believe that was what it's called, that death. Basically, they just thought something was so funny, they just died right there after getting married. It was very devastating. I was not happy. Like, the Sim had like their kids there and everything. It was really a disaster. It was just not great at all. So anyways, I ended up just exiting out of the game and not saving it because I didn't want the Sim to die on their wedding day. So I added these trees, some birch trees in the back instead of that big one. I think I did try to use it earlier, but anyway, so I added some dirt around the trees, and then I was trying to figure out how to deal with that branching path off to the piano. Again, there was a lot of back and forth. Oh, and the tree's now in the front yard. I really, really wanted to use that tree, but I think I ended up getting rid of it. Like I mentioned, I ended up putting the gates in there, and I ended up putting a lot of like plants and flowers out front and lighting. So I keep swapping between day and night because I wanted it to look nice at night if you decide you want your Sims to get married at night. You can, of course, add more lighting or whatever you want to in the back to give it some more light for, screenshots or whatever you're doing. And then I end up, it looks like taking a seat out of the front. I'm wondering if I left it that way. I went back and forth a lot on this build, if it's not clear. I didn't cut out a lot of it. Like I said, just a little bit of it, like especially the beginning, just trying to get the general shape of the build down, just because I feel like it's important to show that this stuff doesn't just like happen, that you actually like have to experiment. At least some people, at least I do, have to experiment and change my mind several times and record it in several sessions because I just don't know what to do with pieces of it. So I just decided to make some like flower patches, kind of guiding the path around the side of the building so your Sims can just go that way if they want to head out to the ceremony space. And then inside there's bathrooms and, like I said, 2 rooms for your Sims to get ready for their big day. There's also on the top floor, we'll see later, I actually put in a kitchen in case either A, your cake spoils before you can actually get married, because that's definitely happened to me, or if you forget that you need a cake and you have to cook one. I figure it's also if you wanted like a caterer or something like that, there's somewhere for them to cook. I actually end up there, I put like a ladder up to the 3rd floor, so the idea being only like employees can get there, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself talking about it. But anyways, back to what I'm actually doing. So putting in some rocks to frame out these flower gardens that I put here. And I thought about putting some benches and things like that, but I ended up not doing that. Sorry if you can hear my chair squeaking. But I ended up putting, these are actually like little lantern light things that actually came with the wedding pack. So I put those in there to, again, help with some lighting in case you wanted to be on the lot at night with your Sims, and so you can actually still see what you're doing. And I think at this point, once I put in these flower gardens, the flower patches, whatever you want to call them, is when I decided the fountain was a little bit too big, and so I should probably be replacing it soon, I would imagine. But anyway, so putting in all of these different plants. While I was doing this, I was definitely trying to decide whether or not I wanted to actually add more plants to like the tiers of the cake. But I opted not to, so I did not add any more. I kind of left it the way it was. I didn't want there to be too much, because usually I feel like when you have cakes, you can still see part of the tiers. So I didn't want to like overwhelm it, and I wanted it to still look like a cake. So, and there I am back and forth between the light and dark, just to make sure that it looks all right. And then I think I do it here. Oh, yep, there I am placing it. Even though I still size that up, it's still to me smaller, and I want to make sure your Sims could actually walk around it to actually get to the building, which is pretty important. And you saw I had a bench there for a second. Oh, and then, so this was me getting rid of the arch, because again, I didn't want your Sims to be confused. And then obviously they can't reach that one unless they're like teleporting, so I wanted to get rid of it. And then we'll come back for the mannequins later. I think I do that when I'm doing the inside of the build. And then, yeah, adding some lighting to the actual building itself. And then now I think we're actually moving on to the inside finally. So I decided to do the marble to kind of match the stairs we already have. And of course going with pink because, like I said, for whatever reason, that became our color scheme for this build. And I spent a ton of time on the stairs. Like it was, I mean, as you can see, I was just like struggling very hard, especially since where I put the stairs had to match up with the next floor, which became difficult, obviously, because the next floor is smaller than the bottom one. So, and then trying to figure out how I was going to get to the 3rd floor without taking up a ton of space in the 2nd and 3rd floors was also a struggle. So you can see I'm trying so hard like to try to like get this to work. And I also was trying to make it to where in the 1st floor their stairs didn't like block a ton of room, that it kind of made sense with the build. And so it just took some time for me to figure this out clearly. And I think eventually, I mean, I know eventually I do get it. I just don't know at what point. So I'm deleting stuff and adding stuff back. I think I went and like undid a bunch of stuff. Because like I said, for the 2nd floor, I wanted to make sure I had space for like those dressing rooms and the bathrooms and everything for your Sims to use while they're on this lot. And it just took a lot of time. And it also kept getting upset because I wanted to put the stairs like farther for the 3rd floor. I kept trying to put it near the wall and it didn't like that, so that kind of changed what I could do. But I did end up leaving it. I think we're getting close to my final version of where I left it. So having the stairs just kind of spiraling. Well, I say spiraling, but it's got this interesting shape going on to go up to the second floor. And I've got it off to the side so that it doesn't get in the way of your Sims actually trying to get up places. And this is me trying to figure out where in the world I was going to put this ladder to where it matches. I went through a lot of renditions of putting walls around the stairs, taking the walls out, putting them back, changing them around. You name it, I probably did it. So this was definitely a struggle for me to get this done. And I think at the end, I just end up kind of encasing it, like the ladder in. So like I said earlier, I kind of had the idea of it being kind of like an employee access point. So like only people that maybe worked at the venue or your caterer or in emergencies, one of your Sims can go up to the third floor and use the kitchen. Otherwise, I figured you wouldn't be using it. Although if you have Sims just roaming around your lot, they'll just kind of do whatever they want. And then, like I said, soon I should be able to figure this out, this floor plan, because trying to fit in both dressing rooms and bathrooms it took me a bit. And I was back and forth on having only one dressing room, but I decided to do two. You have two Sims getting married, so each of them deserves their own space to get ready, and, hang out with their groomsmen, bridesmaid, or whatever they call them in the game, and just, relax before the ceremony. And then I ended up again with pink tile. I think that's what I decided to do in the bathroom, so it kind of matches the theme of everything else. And then I think I put like a bench in there and just like one sink. And of course, because I chose this really weird like room shape, there was only room for one sink once I actually got all the other stuff in there. And I actually ended up for both of the dressing rooms, they actually look pretty identical, which you'll see here in a minute. I decided that, depending on what kind of Sims you have, whether they want to like get their hair done or makeup or whatever, all of your options are there for you. And then I ended up in most of the places, I kind of wanted to make it a little luxurious, so I used like the mirrors with the lights around them. I used those in several places throughout the dressing rooms and the bathroom. And then I actually ended up using those curtains that were, oh my gosh, and I'm blanking which kit that actually came in. Or not a kit, pack it came in. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's the one with the spellcasters. I don't know why I'm blanking. Anyways, not that important. But and I used this rug in several places, sized up because it's kind of small the way it is. But I just thought it looked kind of fluffy and luxurious, having the faux fur there. And then I think I ended up, moving the windows, because I noticed too when I was doing this, the windows ended up in slightly off on the wall. Why, I'm not sure, but they just ended up being kind of weird. So I had to shift some of them throughout decorating. And then I actually had a hard time picking what kind of door I wanted, because I ended up using this like white and gold ornate door to go into the dressing rooms. But then for the bathroom, I needed a smaller door. So, and it is also weird to me, like having, I know this is The Sims, but having like windows on the doors that go into bathrooms, which like, again, it's The Sims. It doesn't actually matter, but that's something I always think about. But anyways, I ended up having this little lobby that branched off into the two dressing rooms. And again, we'll see here in a second. I actually had a hard time deciding what kind of wall decor. Like I wish we had like photos of like couples and things like that, but I figure if you have the Sims you're bringing, if you have photos, you can put those up. So it's kind of all about them, and their love, real cute, all that kind of good stuff. And then I got the mirror, I believe was from Get Famous, along with that hairdressing chair. I don't exactly know what that item is called, but I just put like a small table with a bunch of like makeup and like hair stuff and just things you would use to get ready. And then that dressing platform, I believe, is also from Get Famous. And again, adding those glowing windows because it just looks really nice. And I'm not sure how much room Sims need to get around that chair. So I end up, I think, just putting a plant in the corner and like putting something on the wall instead of putting like a cabinet or something, like you saw me for a second using that cabinet with all the shoes in it. But I opted to use this really snazzy clock. Instead, I actually don't use it very often. And then that random plant, which I think I used in the bathroom. And again, the rug, I did change the color on that to kind of match that like blush color that we have going on. And then I decided, like I said, just to kind of do the same thing on the other side. And then you can customize those spaces depending on the Sims you have and all that kind of good stuff. And then I believe I can't remember if I end up doing the kitchen next or I end up doing like the first floor next. I think I might have actually waited to do the first floor last, ironically. But I believe we're going to transfer into the kitchen here in a second. And of course, having this really weird room shape caused me issues for the kitchen as well, which you'll see in a little bit. Oh, and then I went back and forth about the photos I wanted to put in there, and then a couch, just like what I wanted this space to look like. I decided to go with that couch because I really liked the fact that it had pillows on it. We're starting to get more couches that have pillows, but there's not many still. So I ended up going with that one. Oh, and at this point is when I took the mannequins out. I was really all over the place at this point, trying to decide what I wanted to do. And then we replaced it with, I believe, like I said, the peacock statues that came with our recent kit. And I was trying to like get them to face each other, which you can't really do. And what I was thinking, because a friend of mine, I made her wedding cake for her a couple years ago, and her and her husband, the topper they used was actually 2 flamingos. That's what I was thinking about actually when I was putting those up there, and I was like, this is so cute. But I ended up swapping those out too. And then I had this really weird like nook area that I ended up just kind of putting flowers and, again, one of those like seating chart boards. And then those Sims that go up into the kitchen, trying to deal with the counters was definitely interesting because, and there's me moving the bushes that were like sticking through the wall. But the counters, I just used some plain white counters, and then I ended up just kind of using move objects to kind of put them in there so it kind of looks like a diagonal. I didn't really put anything on the diagonals because I wasn't sure having them kind of clip over each other if that was going to cause issues for your Sims using it. So I just kind of left it so you have stove and then the sink and the fridge. I don't put a ton up here because I don't feel like you would need like a lot of stuff, because I feel like this would being like a venue kitchen. You just wouldn't have a lot. I think I add some like aprons on the wall. I'm thinking like if people come to cook, like, they put their aprons on, and just some utensils. And then I kept wanting to put cabinets up, but the way that room was structured, it just didn't seem quite right because it just kind of got in the way of the windows that are on either side. And then I think I add like a runner there because I actually have, like in my kitchen, I have one like in front of my sink and all. And I tried to put it downstairs, but I don't think it matched very well. And so now that we're finally on the first floor, I'm thinking like when you're entering that we put some tables here for people to actually eat. So we have some food outside, but to put those in there. And I also decided that I wanted to put a sweetheart table, which you see, that's why I have 2 random chairs sitting there because I'm going to use those in a second. Which a sweetheart table, in case you don't know, is when you basically have just a table set aside for the 2 people getting married. So they sit at their own cozy table, and then everybody sits at the bigger tables. And I definitely went back and forth on like what kind of table I wanted to use for them, because the wedding pack only came with those larger round ones, which is not what I wanted to use. But eventually we find our way to the table. And then I actually do bring that circular table back to use it for the wedding cake. And you'll see the struggle of me trying to find a wedding cake in Debug, and I could not find it for the life of me. But we'll talk about that when I get there, because I'm sure there's plenty of time. And so I added this table on this side. I thought this place your guests could put their gifts. I know that's not like actually a thing in The Sims, but I like the idea of like having a place for people to put gifts. And I know like nowadays a lot of people use online registries anyways, but I like the idea of having it there. And on the other side, I use it as more of like the welcome table, which you'll see me decorate here really soon. And so it's symmetric on both sides, and I end up putting like a box on the table. Like I'm thinking about like leaving notes for the couple, things like that. Like there's just a place to do that, or if you want to drop off like envelopes or whatever else, there was a box for you to put that in. And then, oh yeah, I added another bar there, kind of in that corner, so your Sims have two places. So you'd actually need, I guess, 2 bartenders for this lot if you wanted a bartender at both of them. And then, adding some more seating inside, and then some lanterns. I really like those lanterns, and they actually give off some good light. And then I also end up using the tea sets that actually came with this pack as well. And so I just grabbed some table and put the tea sets on those. And then, adding some light so we can actually see what's going on this floor. And then I think, is this the point where I actually start decorating that table? Yeah, so that's the box I was talking about. And then I also thought this would be a place like for guest books. So basically when people come, they can come and sign saying, hey, I was here. So I put one of those. I put like some flowers on the table, just like little things you might have on a welcome table. I think I also put like a little picture frame. I think they came with the paranormal pack, but I thought it'd be something like maybe it's pictures of the couple, you know, putting next to like the welcome area. And then, that's the table I brought out that I thought to put the cake on, at which point I was trying so hard to find a debug wedding cake, and I don't know why I could not find it. As you can see, I'm like scrolling for 10 years to try to find it, but I did come across cake toppers, so that's what I was looking for the top of this build anyways. So I ended up pulling out a bunch of those to see what they look like. So excuse the clutter that's about to happen on the top of this build, but I'll take care of it here in a second. And then I also, that was a bouquet, so I put that down on that table as well. Again, just things I feel like would be at a wedding. And then I think I end up actually using that one that's already there. Yeah, just size it down a little bit and got rid of the peacocks and just put that there. So I like that a lot. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me to actually use a wedding topper that would have come with the wedding pack. But anyways, I got there in the end. And then again, just looking for this cake, it was really bugging me, so I just kept looking for it. At one point, like I found it looked like a birthday cake, but when I placed it, it was just a plate. So anyways, ended up getting rid of that, and I just could not find one. So you'll have to, when you come, bring a cake, and you can throw it on that table, so it's kind of right there with everything. And then your Sims can go on the dance floor and get the bar outside, have the ceremony outside. And I was actually really happy with the way this turned out as you watch me scroll through debug. And basically, if you're unaware, debug is something that was added, I forgot, not too terribly long ago, but maybe a year or so. I don't know. But basically, it's this, you can put in a code and you can go in and actually see all of the items that your Sims have access to, or things that were in the worlds that were added. Like for instance, you can get like a remote control, things like that, like things like pots and pans your Sims just magically have and pull out of their pockets. You have access to all of those things, as well as just like different pieces of landscaping that already come in the packs. And so I ended up throwing, like, they had a cake that hadn't been frosted yet or decorated, so I put that up in the kitchen, thinking like, oh, maybe the caterer's working on it possibly. And then the last thing I added was this little entrance table. Again, I thought the monogram would be pretty, and just a bouquet of flowers to go with it. But we are reaching the end of this build, so I hope you have a really sweet day and enjoy the screenshots.